women have spoken out for their sex and articulated in different ways their complaints, their needs, and their hopes. As this is a very short introduction, I have concentrated on feminism in one country, England, and have tried to explore its development through time. While women in other countries have had different experiences and definitions, in England, right up until the 1960s at least, the word feminist was usually pejorative. Very few women, however deeply engaged in fighting for women's rights, would have described themselves as feminists. When women began to organize again in the 1960s and 1970s, the movement called itself women's liberation, borrowing the term from Black, Third World, and student movements. This was often shortened, sometimes affectionately, sometimes in a derogatory way, to women's lib. But those years also saw the word feminism being brought back into general use, and its meaning was extended. Though there was still a justified concern that civil and legal equality had not been fully achieved, the new movement tended to concentrate on problems specific to women in their reproductive and social roles. In those years, too, feminists in Britain made an attempt, at least, to reach out across national boundaries and discover what they had or did not have in common with feminists abroad. But how often still do we hear women anxiously asserting, "I'm not a feminist, but," as they go on to make claims that depend upon and would be impossible without a feminist groundwork? The American feminist Estelle Friedman argues that right from its origins, the word has carried negative connotations, that surprisingly few politically engaged women have styled themselves feminists. In the 1990s, some feminists in England and the United States identified and warned against a backlash against feminism and its undoubted achievements. Juliet Mitchell and Anne Oakley, for example, called their third collection of essays "Who's Afraid of Feminism?" with a cartoon of a big bad wolf on the original jacket cover. They argued that attacks on feminism frequently merge into a wider misogyny. The feminist is now the name given to the disliked or despised woman, much as man-hater or castrating bitch, harridan or witch were used before the 1960s. They added that women also have to expose and eradicate the misogyny inherent in feminism itself. Just as troubling is the caution that the term feminism seems to arouse in many younger women, a surprising number of whom seem to shy away from the concept. One English tabloid recently published a double-page spread entitled "Is Feminism Dead?", which managed, neatly enough, to sit on the fence. Equal space was devoted to arguments yes and no, to those who felt the term was still urgently relevant, and to those who were sure it was dated, even embarrassing, and should be retired. The piece was illustrated with a photograph of militant women's libbers picketing a Miss World demonstration. In fact, everyone in the photo was laughing. Faintly embarrassed, I recognized my much younger self, with long hair and long skirts, clutching a distinctly uninspired placard announcing that women are people too. I had almost forgotten that the Miss World contests still existed. In those bad old days, it was on primetime television, until in 2002 the event received unexpected publicity. First, when Nigerian militants demonstrated violently against its parade of nudity, which they thought would encourage promiscuity and AIDS. Then, when several contestants refused to participate because a young Nigerian woman, sentenced to death under Islamic Sharia law for having become pregnant outside marriage, was reprieved, but only until she had weaned her baby. The beauty queen's gesture was both courageous and effective, though, interestingly, one insisted, with a hint of anxiety, that she took up her stand, certainly not because she was a feminist, or even because she was a woman, but because she was a human being. When I recently asked some women in their early 20s, some of whom were university educated, others working, and all clearly beneficiaries of earlier battles for women's rights, whether they considered themselves feminists or indeed had any interest in feminism, most of them replied flatly, no.